So I was thinking about how in German New Medicine, but in pretty much all of these holistic health concept things, um, the spine is like the self concept, and so a self devaluation conflict, which is like self loathing, self doubt. When someone takes a blow to your self esteem, your sense of self, you get problems with your spine. I feel like I was writing about that because I was very interested in the fact that seeing a chiropractor, my mind starts working a lot better. It's nice. The self-devaluation conflict, and it can affect the spine in German New Medicine, but in other holistic traditions too. It's when you're like bending to the world too much, and your sense of self isn't there, and it's interesting because the spine, like scientifically, is pretty much a tree of life because it is you. It is like all of your sensory input output, all of your movement, everything. The spinal cord is your center. It is the processing center of the human body. It is the central nervous system. If your self is damaged, of course your spine is going to be damaged. And the tree of life stands in the center of the Garden of Eden, right? And the Garden of Eden, even though since humanity's fall, Adam and Eve, they eat the fruit, they are expelled, they get to know good and evil, the tree of knowledge, they eat from it. And then they become aware of the contrasts in life and how everything is fragmentary pieces, even though there is this one clear light that they were eating from, which is eternal life and love of God, and it's in the center of the garden. And your spine is that tree of life, and when you hold yourself upright, you can get back to it because you are allowing everything in your body to travel properly and hold yourself properly, and your self-esteem is held centrally, and you can't have that inner peace and go back up through the garden, which at the end of that part of Genesis it says, the way was left back, yeah, it's guarded by swords and angels, but cherubim, but you can go back, and it's, yeah, I think like the way back is to become fully embodied and confident in yourself and certain of who you are, because who you are is centered in God and centered in that sense of like love and life, and keep your spine upright. And even Jordan Peterson is saying this, the first chapter of 12 Rules for Life is keep your shoulders back and keep your posture upright, because an upright posture, serotonin helps keep the posture upright, but the upright posture also produces serotonin. And yes, they make fun of the lobster analogy, but comparative anatomy is hugely important in neuroscience. I mean, if it wasn't a lobster, talk about the fucking fruit fly, the single cell paramecium, like we all have the same central nervous system. And so the lobster is, as he says himself, it's useful to study that. And the upright posture is dominance. You are able to face the challenges of life. You're less likely to be ill, less likely to feel overwhelmed by everything. And I think, so yeah, you go back up and you have unification on an upright spine, the tree of life, certitude and love, bending to the world and lacking your sense of self, integrity, fragmentation, spine problems. Makes sense, right? I got this from a friend who's a biochemist and would like to be a homeopath, and I love everything like that. And it is quite literal and existential as much as it is metaphorical. And just pragmatic, I'm not speaking like entirely medically, as in like, specific, like sciatica, the lumbar spine feeling unsupported. I mean, it did happen to me in the time of my life when I felt most unsupported. Spine is the tree of life. Well, it is, right? The central nervous system, the center of the Garden of Eden. God in you. And also, what I was thinking actually, without that center. So literally, if there is damage to the central nervous system, to the spine, the limbs do not function effectively. If your limbs do not function effectively, you cannot reach into the world, you cannot hold others, you cannot love. You do not have certitude of love. And I had this idea came to me, so there is a part of the city where I like to go and charge my phone, because I do a lot of different jobs, so I'm traveling around, and this is a nice place to go. I was lying on the floor and I was just thinking about various things, and I was arguing with my mother, and I was thinking about how we're both very, very bitter and sort of, our limbs are kind of feeble, and like we reach into the world with a sense of bitterness and a sense of needing something rather than giving something and having the something already. And so my mother and I are accusing each other of not loving each other in the correct way, but actually it's just because we're not able to sit with and give love from a sense of plenitude ourselves. We have this sense of being done wrong because we're crushed and sort of bent over with limbs, and we do have actual problems with our real spines. But it's, I was just thinking about that because, with that certitude, you can go into the world with confidence. And this isn't the sort of thing of like, love yourself before you love another person, but I mean, it's more in a sense of like, we literally do inherit the sins of the flesh of Eve, of the apple, because we inherit the insecurities that we are born into in our families, and that comes down through habits and through fleshliness, and we basically embody our parents and all of their resentments and disappointments. And so if my mother is cawed by a bitterness, I too am cawed by a bitterness and a need for a parent and a need for something which isn't given to me, and a sense of disappointment and a sense of fret. And I think, and this isn't to like complain about my mother, this is just to be theoretically explaining where I'm going. And I think, Eve eats of the fruit and lacks faith and trust and fragments. And then all of us are born in that kind of brokenness in any whichever way that we come through from our parents. We are fallen, we embrace all of our mother's disappointments. It's like we are fur rugs that their claws are reaching down through into our own nervous systems, and splayed flat by their insecurities and their problems. And all of our habits are going to come from this. And that's not to say that our parents specifically are bad or to blame families. It's more to say, we are all in a fallen state. And the point is to come into consciousness of yourself and to hold yourself upright, and to, instead of being splayed flat with your weak limbs, fallen under the apple tree of good and evil, to seek your own integration and your own certitude and your own sense of love, and just be absolutely certain and go forward with that and embody yourself. Do not embody the sins of the flesh, because you are spirit and free will as well. You have the freedom of choice to choose. You do not have to continue to have the sins of Eve, of your mother, of her mother, of their mother before, to keep going and going and going, and all of these accumulated habits which could destroy you without you even knowing. Because, my mother is not a particularly bitter person as far as mothers go, and I was thinking about worse ones, and I don't know, I could go on about this, but I'm tired. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Interesting? Load of nonsense? Tell me. I'm no scholar.